I'm Allen Kenney, Managing Editor with REIT.com, and we're in Dallas, Texas at the Hilton Anatole Hotel for REIT World 2011, NAREIT's annual convention for all things REIT. Joining me is Chairman and CEO of First Potomac Realty Trust, Doug Donatelli. Doug, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Alan.
Your company focuses exclusively in the Washington, D.C. market. It's one of the more stable ones in the country. How would you say things are holding up at this point in time?
Well, it's interesting in Washington today because you're right. It's been traditionally one of the strongest real estate markets in the country, and it continues to be very strong. We've had positive net absorption every quarter so far this year, but there's a lot of concern and headwinds in Washington as it relates to the perception of some future downsizing from the federal government, and the fact that the federal government really has not been a big tenant active in the market this year. Interestingly, though, because we've had positive net absorption, there's been a tremendous amount of leasing from non-government tenants. We've seen a number of companies moving their headquarters into Washington. Several large publicly traded companies have moved into the DC marketplace, and that's really given our market a lift overall, but from an investor standpoint, there's a tremendous amount of concern.
And then going forward, I know you just kind of touched on this, but what are some of the bigger issues that you're going to be looking at?
Well, I think we need to really keep an eye on what's going to be going on with government, like I said. And I think, really from our perspective, it's really not a bad thing overall. We're seeing that the federal government really has a lot of pressure on them to utilize their real estate more intelligently, to operate in more efficient buildings, more modern buildings, more energy efficient properties, and to use the square footage they have a lot more efficiently. So that maybe with a push towards decreasing the amount of real estate that they use, especially in the Washington area. And that's really no different than a lot of companies that have been going through over the last couple of years, looking to cut their costs, to reduce the square footage that they occupy, but then moving into better buildings, more energy efficient buildings with more efficient floor plates, and paying for that so that their per square foot costs go up, but their overall costs go down because they occupy less square footage. The federal government's going to be doing the same thing. We have designed a portfolio that we think fits the demand of tenants, both federal government and non-government tenants, so that we can take advantage of that, but it's something we need to really keep an eye on going forward.
And Doug, we're nearing the end of 2011. What, in your mind, has been the big story in the REIT market this year?
Well, I think there have been several stories. I think probably the biggest is the volatility that's reemerged. I thought the volatility we saw in 08 and 09 was a thing of the past. I'm certainly hopeful that would be the case, but I think we've seen a tremendous amount of volatility back in the market again, which brings its own set of challenges as to how to operate and when to tap the capital markets and in what manner. That looks like it is going to be here for a while until some of the budgetary issues, both in Europe and here in the United States, get sorted out. While I hope that calms down a bit, I think that might be with us for a while. That being said, I think just like in 08 and 09, the REIT model looks like it really holds up well in times like these, where we have multiple ways where we can access capital. We are bringing professional management to properties, and I think that overall REIT model holds up well. It's holding up really well right now too.
All right, well, thank you very much for joining us, Doug.
All right, thanks, Alan.
And for more from REIT World 2011, check out REIT.com.